Hello, welcome to the weather forecast. We are awaiting a snow event. Um, it's very cold. I think it must be -5. It's very, very, very cold in Alberta, in Edmonton. So I send my deepest sympathy to the people of Edmonton. It is nowhere near as cold here as there. Obviously, this is our temperate zone. However, I've been waiting for a particularly wintry weather event to read um, from a writer I am very interested in and have fairly recently discovered. His name is D.M. Fraser. He's a Canadian writer. I believe he was born in Nova Scotia, but he seemed to spend most of his writing life here in Vancouver. And he has a story called, I have to find it now, hold on a minute. Talk among yourselves. As I was saying, in honor of the cold Arctic outflow that's sweeping across the west coast in from the prairies, I'd like to share this literary weather forecast from D.M. Fraser. The story is called Saturday Night in the World in Winter. You can find this story in his collection. He published 2 books. The first was called Class Warfare. The second was The Voice of Emma Sachs, and then there was a book, I believe, published after he died, which there were 2 further books that I found. One was called Prelude, and it appeared to be a collection of his entire works, and it was in that collection that I discovered this piece. Most of his books are out of print, but you can find them at the library, and you can probably buy them used. And he's very intriguing. His writing, his stories. So I'm going to read this. Saturday night in the world in winter. It had snowed most of the week. By Saturday, it was becoming difficult to remember that it had ever not been winter. Severin built an imaginary fireplace in his living room, toasted imaginary marshmallows in it, laced his real coffee with real rum, and tried to write a sonnet to his beloved, who was elsewhere. Wind thrummed in the power lines, snow piled up mushily against the windows. The lights signaled their determination to go out permanently at any moment. Severin examined his feelings about winter and found them uncharitable. Was not this weather after all a boon to skiers, skaters, throwers of snowballs? Severin's private atavism actually seen a vastness of white outside, sturdy settlers clustered snugly around the wood stove, singing hymns of dubious Thanksgiving, telling long, nostalgically pointless stories about the old country, the crossing, the felling of stubborn trees. Severin dismissed his atavism firmly. The sonnet bogged down at the 3rd line. None of the words that might have rhymed decently with legs seemed particularly suitable in the circumstances. At last, the lights went out. Severin was in love, or else, as some said unwisely, he was not in love, merely enthralled to opportunity. There were symptoms he recognized, with or without dread, from previous flights of dementia, physiological manifestations of uncontrolled excitation, his spiritual advisor called them. Severin had his own opinion of that. He had his own language for the occasion. Never mind that it owed perhaps too much to the cadences of greeting cards and decorated Victorian chapbooks. He wore 3 sweaters to bed, conjured something like heat, and pondered what he would say, if he dared, at his next encounter. Listen, he would say. In the crucible of the moment, the approved attitudes melt away. The approved inhibitions take wing like pigeons in crisis. Right action does not always instantly present itself. Who, thus splendidly tempted, would have the cowardice to resist? Must only the sated fuck? That would tell them. He dozed off then, greatly pleased with himself. Soon thereafter, the lights came back on again, waking him from unholy dreams. So, Severin was not in love. He was experiencing emotional disturbance, the distemper of the season. In winter, a man may be forgiven much. In times of snow and slush, he may be permitted an excess of inwardness. There is nothing more tedious, his spiritual adviser said to him in a dream, than this puerile indulgence in personal life. What you need, my son, are more disinterested interests. Severin scowled. What I need, he replied, is only more of my beloved, that gilded wonder, and more money, more of the banal amenities, more chutzpah. His spiritual adviser sneezed. Don't you even have a furnace in this dump? He asked. Out of bed again, Severin listened to the radio, which threatened more snow, unprecedented in our temperate zone, and advised motorists to observe extreme caution. Severin, no motorist, felt no disposition towards caution. He craved risk, wildness, the carnal satisfaction of racing blind into the dark, into whatever lay, impenetrable as Los Angeles, just behind the last cinemascope sunset. Romantic slob, his residual consolence hissed at him. Think of the damage! He thought of aching under the weight of it, as his beloved had ached under his weight, on a night not unlike this one. Somewhere it had always been winter, and his atavism could bring capriciously to nostrils that had never smelled it, the sweetness of wood smoking in an iron stove, to ears that had never heard it. The lamplight stained sepia on haggard faces, hard faces remembering hardship. His atavism, properly encouraged, could do any number of remarkable things. He would not encourage it. The ghost of winters past stopped in for a visit, chatted briefly, accepted a glass of rum, a half-smoked cigar. I'm not fussy, the GWP assured him. You should consider yourself fortunate among so many to have been chosen. Chosen for what? Severin wanted to know. The GWP looked peeved. For reckless infamy and disgrace, of course. Lacrimae rerum. The usual shit and corruption so long denied you. Recall how it was if your heart grows faint. Imagine how it yet may be. Imagine how it may yet be. Meanwhile, build snowmen on the edge of thaw. Skate the thinnest ice you can find. Why the hell not? Severin nodded, agreeing desperately. So that is a sizable extract of the story Saturday Night in the World in Winter, again by D.M. Fraser, who's a very interesting Vancouver writer. And what I really particularly love about that story is the way he evokes, in the first paragraph, the part about him building an imaginary fireplace in his living room, toasting imaginary marshmallows in it, and lacing his coffee, and sitting down to write a sonnet. And it's interesting because he's kind of evoking a winter scene that's elsewhere, so it doesn't exist where he is now, in order to create a winter scene where he exists. So it's kind of an interesting kind of oppositional merger, which I enjoyed, and I love all the references to the weather in it, and I just really do enjoy D.M. Fraser's voices. He's got this very interesting fluidity, and I just find him very engaging. So, thank you for watching the cold weather alert winter weather forecast, and keep warm.